After 7 years of silence, I flew home for my mom's birthday. My family barely looked up. My sister said, still broke, still alone, still pointless. Mom laughed into her whine. I smiled and parked my car where they could all see it. Minutes later, their faces changed at what I had driven home. I need to tell you about the voicemail first. I've had the same phone number for 11 years. Every phone upgrade, every carrier switch, I ported that number over because I needed to keep one specific voicemail. My dad left it the night I drove away from home at 23, and I've listened to it maybe 400 times since. Not because it hurts anymore. It stopped hurting somewhere around year 3. I listened to it because it's the most accurate map I have of where I came from. He said, "You don't have what it takes. You never did. Don't come back expecting anything from us." 17 words I've counted. I was loading the last cardboard box into a 2003 Civic with a cracked rear bumper and a driver's side window that only went down, not up, when my phone buzzed against the car door. I listened to it at a rest stop outside Hagerstown, played it once, sat there for 6 minutes, and then merged back onto the interstate. My sister Carla was on the porch when I left. I know because I looked in the rear view as I turned out of the driveway. She stood with her arms crossed in that particular way she had, the way that communicated she'd already filed whatever was happening into a category and was watching it confirm her judgment. She didn't wave. She just stood there until the house disappeared behind the hedgerow. Here is what I want you to understand about the kind of family I came from, because it matters for everything that comes after. They were not loud about it. There were no plates thrown. Nobody screamed. My dad never hit anyone. My mom kept an immaculate house and made dinner 6 nights a week and volunteered at the school fundraiser every spring. If you asked anyone in our town about my family, they'd have told you we were perfectly nice, normal. But there is a kind of cruelty that operates entirely below the threshold of what anyone would identify as cruelty, and my family had perfected it. It ran on repetition, on tone, on the particular way a person can make you feel stupid for having a dream without ever technically saying your dream is stupid. You're not practical. That was my dad's. Said it the way other fathers said good morning, reflexively, without looking up. You think too big. That was my mom's. Said with genuine concern, the way you'd warn someone about walking into traffic. You've always been the difficult one. That was Carla's. She'd decided early that being the easy one was the power move, so she was easy and I was difficult, and the family arranged itself around that story until I didn't question it either. By 20, I had absorbed as facts about myself. I was impractical, unreliable. I thought too big and followed through too little. I was the difficult one. Everyone was bracing for it. None of those things were true, but I didn't know that yet. I got a job at a property management company, entry-level leasing, $28,000 a year. Back in my childhood bedroom at 22 with a diploma and nowhere to put it, and my family resumed. "You're not being practical," my dad said, when I told him I wanted my real estate license. "It's a tough market," my mom said. "You always do this," Carla said. "Start something and don't finish it." I finished it. I passed the exam. I started taking listings on the side. I was doing okay. Building something from the ground up is slow, and nobody talks about how slow it actually is. How the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go can feel so large at 2 in the morning that you have to actively choose not to look at it. I was 23 and choosing not to look at it every night when my dad left that voicemail. I don't remember what started the argument. What I remember is my dad's face in the kitchen doorway, the particular set of his jaw that meant he'd decided something, and the words, "You're not going to make it at this. You're spinning your wheels. Either you figure out how to be realistic or you figure out how to be somewhere else." I was somewhere else by morning. $60 in checking, a duffel bag, the Civic with the broken window, a real estate license. I drove south until I got tired of driving and stopped in Phoenix, Arizona. The next 4 years are the ones I don't talk about much. Not because they were bad, but because they were just work. That's it. That's the whole story of those years. I worked. I know people want the version where it's a grind, but there's joy in the grind. Maybe some people have that version. I had the other one, too tired to socialize, too focused to get distracted, too scared of going backwards to ever fully relax. I found a room in a shared house for $450 a month. Air mattress for the first month because I didn't have a bed frame. Shipping warehouse from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Studied in the afternoons. Failed the Arizona real estate exam by 3 points the first time. Passed it by 4 the second. Got my first listing through a guy named Marcus. I met unloading freight who needed to sell his mother's house fast. Small house in Glendale, good yard, outdated kitchen. Listed it, sold it in 9 days, $4,000 over asking. Marcus shook my hand in the driveway and said, "I'm telling everyone I know." He meant it. He did. That was the beginning. By year 3, I had a small team, 2 buyer's agents, an admin, a transaction coordinator, moving about 30 units a year. Not impressive by some standards, more than enough by mine. Then I met Dale Richter. Dale was 61 and had owned a Ford dealership in Mesa for 32 years. He came to me through a referral selling commercial property after deciding to retire. During the due diligence period, he started bringing me coffee from a diner he liked and asking me genuine questions about what I was building. Not politely, actually genuinely. He'd sit across from my desk in an ancient leather jacket and ask about my margins and my 5-year plan, listening with the focused attention of a man who had spent 3 decades evaluating people for exactly what they were. One day he said, "You ever think about the car business?" I said no. He said, "You should. You're selling the same thing. You're just selling the wrong asset." He explained it over the next 3 coffees. The real money in car dealerships wasn't the front-end margin. It was the finance and insurance office, the service department, the certified pre-owned program, building relationships that made people come back. It was exactly what I'd been doing in real estate. He wasn't selling me anything. He was just talking. But I started listening differently. The property sold in 60 60 days. At closing, Dale slid a business card across the table. One name, a phone number. He said, "That's my guy at Ford Motor Credit. If you ever want to explore the franchise side, tell him I sent you. He owes me about 15 years of favors." I put the card in my wallet and forgot about it for 14 months. Then I was at a closing in Scottsdale, waiting for a wire to clear, and the seller, a man named Gerald who worked in dealership management, started talking about how good GM candidates were impossible to find because the best people were already running their own stores. "Why don't more people open their own?" I asked. He looked at me like I'd asked why people don't just lie to work. "Capital," he said, "and the manufacturer approval process. Ford doesn't hand out franchises. You have to prove the capital, the facility, the business plan, the track record." I called Dale's guy on the drive home. What followed was 18 months of the most tedious process I've ever navigated. Financial disclosures, facility plans, background checks, site visits, letters of intent, a commercial real estate attorney, a CPA, Dale on speed dial from his retirement in Sedona. The approval came through on a Tuesday in November. I read the email 3 times, closed my laptop, sat still for 2 minutes, then called Dale. He picked up on the second ring. "I know," he said. "They called me this morning." He laughed. "Buy yourself a decent dinner tonight. Tomorrow it gets hard again." He was right. Construction on the facility, staffing the service department, training the sales team, every manufacturer requirement from signage to software. Weeks of working until midnight and back in at 6. Opening day. I stood in the parking lot and looked at the sign for probably 2 minutes longer than was normal. Devlin Auto. My name. My father's last name, yes, but mine. 2 years later, my aunt called about the party. By then, we had 62 employees and 11 acres of lot and a sign on Route 9 that people drove past every day without thinking about who owned it. I thought about who owned it every single morning. That was my answer to the voicemail. I had a very specific and concrete one now. My Aunt Linda called on a Thursday in March. She's my mom's younger sister, and she's always been the family's diplomatic core, the person who makes the calls nobody else wants to make and absorbs the awkwardness so that events can happen. She said my mom was turning 60 in April. Big party, full family. She said it like that was supposed to mean something. I said, "How is she?" "Good, happy, mostly." A pause. "She misses you." She won't say it that way, but she does. I thought about it for 2 weeks. I almost didn't go. Then I thought about the voicemail and about the fact that I'd never once gone back to let them see what I'd built, and about the number 60 and what it means in a person's life, and I booked the flight. Here is what I want to be honest about. I didn't go because I had forgiven anyone. I didn't go because I was ready to reconcile. I went because my Aunt Linda had spoken to me like a person. I went because some part of me had been accumulating something for 7 years, and it was time to set it down in the same place I'd picked it up. I thought about what I was walking back into. 7 years is enough for a family's mythology to solidify. I had been the one who left, which in my family's telling meant the one who gave up, who couldn't take it, who had run. Never mind that what I'd run from was being told regularly that I was incapable of the exact thing I was currently doing on 11 acres of Arizona lot. The story the family tells is the story the family tells, and absence doesn't give you the ability to edit it. Carla would be there. My dad would be there. My mom in her element, hostessing, performing the role of the woman who kept everything together, and I would be the subtext, the one who left, the difficult one, still broke, still alone, still pointless. Carla had said that to a mutual cousin at a family gathering I hadn't attended. The cousin texted it to me. I'd read it in a parking garage in Scottsdale and sat with it for a while and then driven to a closing and sold a house and done nothing about it, but I'd carried it, and I wanted to know what happened to it when it met the facts. I arranged for my GM Tony to cover the lot for 3 days. I packed a bag. I shipped the car ahead, a black G-Wagon, current year, the kind that doesn't announce itself. It just sits there being exactly what it is, and flew into the regional airport. I drove toward my mother's house on roads I'd last driven 7 years ago, in a direction that felt entirely different. The house looked smaller. The hedgerow was bigger. Catering van in the driveway. I pulled in behind it, found no room, and pulled back out to the far end of the drive where it met the road. Only open spot. I turned off the engine and sat for a moment. Then I got out of the car and walked through the gate. Nobody looked up. I want to be precise about this because I've thought about it a lot since. It wasn't that the yard was loud and nobody noticed. The yard wasn't that loud. There were maybe 40 people on the back lawn and patio, talking in clusters, and several of them were close enough to the gate that my coming through it registered peripherally. A few people glanced over. Not one person I was related to looked up. My dad was near the back of the yard with a friend from the hardware store. Back halfway to me didn't turn. My mom was on the patio holding her wine glass, facing the general direction of the gate. I watched her eyes register a new presence and deliberately not focus on it. She saw me. I know she saw me with the certainty of someone who spent 23 years learning to read a person who communicated everything except what she actually meant. She adjusted her grip on her wine glass and kept talking. That was the welcome home. My cousin Danny gave me a nod from across the yard that contained genuine warmth and zero willingness to make a scene. I nodded back. Danny and I have an understanding. He was the only one who texted me on my birthday in the years I was gone. I found the food table and stood near it. Standing near food gives you a reason to be somewhere when nobody is offering you a reason to be anywhere. I picked up a bread roll. I was working on my second when Carla materialized beside me with 2 women I'd never seen before, both in the kind of carefully casual weekend outfit that signals effort without wanting to admit it. "You actually came," she said. Not hello, you actually came, which managed to acknowledge my presence and comment on the odds simultaneously. One of the women asked what I was up to these days. Before I could answer, Carla cut in with the bright, performative voice she uses when she's rehearsed something, still broke, still alone, still pointless, said it like a punchline, like it was our bit, like 7 years hadn't happened. The two women did the half-smile calculation, not sure if they were allowed to laugh. Across the yard, my mom heard it. She looked over, lifted her glass slightly, and laughed into her wine. Light, brief, dismissive. The laugh of a woman who had been telling a story about someone for 7 years and just heard the punchline confirmed. I smiled, put down the bread roll, walked away. I don't perform for people who've already written the ending. I learned this in my first year of sales. You can spend enormous energy trying to change a mind that's already made up, and the return almost never justifies the cost. The move is to let them keep their version and wait for the facts to do the work. The facts were parked at the end of the driveway. They were patient. The party went on. Someone toasted. The catered food was good, better than I expected. I talked to Danny for 15 minutes about his kids. I talked to a woman named Eileen who taught with my mom and who was genuinely warm and didn't seem to have a version of me that required defending. My dad found me near the back fence around the hour mark. He came over with his drink and stood beside me in the way men stand when they want to talk but haven't decided if they're going to. He's older. That hit harder than anything else about coming home. He's 64 now and he looks it. The hair that was dark when I left is mostly gray. His shoulders carry the set of a man who's been lifting things physically for 40 years. Long drive, he said. I flew, I said. A pause. Right, he nodded at the yard. Lot of people here. We stood. The party noise cushioned us from the weight of having nothing real to say. Your Aunt Linda was glad you came, he said. She called me. It was nice of her. Another silence. I could tell there was something sitting behind his eyes. Some version of something he'd thought about saying. Whatever it was, he was looking at it and deciding not to. Dad, my mom's voice from across the yard. Come get a photo. He straightened up. Went to get the photo. I watched him go. I felt something I didn't entirely have a name for. Not anger, not sadness exactly. Something more like watching a building and understanding the engineering of why it stands the way it does. He had been choosing silence for as long as I could remember. He had probably told himself it was peacekeeping. I needed a drink. I want to be honest about the car. I know how easy it is to say I didn't intend to make a statement when there was clearly some level of awareness that a statement would be made. A black current year G-Wagon parked at the end of a driveway at a birthday party in a town like this is going to get noticed eventually. I knew that. What I'm saying is I didn't park it there strategically. The driveway was full. I didn't walk out to stand next to it to create a moment. I went out because I needed a few minutes from the party, and the driveway was where I ended up. My Uncle Frank came around the side of the house about 10 minutes into my being there. Frank is my dad's older brother, retired, loud opinion about everything. He came around the corner and stopped dead. I watched from near the Magnolia, maybe 30 feet away. He did a slow walk around the car, crouched at the rear quarter to look at the badging, stood back up and looked at the glass. Then he turned and walked to the patio and said, loud enough that the whole patio heard, "Whose car is that at the end of the drive?" The party did the thing parties do. Heads turned. People looked at each other. Nobody spoke. My dad set down whatever he was holding and drifted toward the front of the house. He walked down the driveway the way he used to at car shows, with the particular unhurried attention of a man who takes vehicles seriously. He got to the G-Wagon and leaned in through the window, and then he went still. He stayed still for a moment, then he straightened up slowly, the way a person straightens when they've understood something they weren't prepared to understand. He walked back up the driveway and looked at me across the yard. I looked back. The energy shifted in about 30 seconds. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet recalibration. The way a room's temperature drops 2 degrees and you can't explain how you know, you just know. Carla was beside me inside a minute. The bright voice was gone. That's your car? Yes. She looked at it, then at me, then at it again. You bought that? No, I said. I own the dealership. She stared at me, not disbelieving, believing it, and discovering what that cost. My mom had drifted over, wine glass still in hand. The laugh from earlier, gone. She looked at the car, then at me. Is that yours? It is. Since when do you? She stopped. What do you do out there? I own a car dealership. Her eyes did something complicated. Several reactions competing for the same real estate. Something that might have been the ancestor of pride. Something that looked like recalculation. And underneath both of those, something I hadn't expected. Discomfort, not guilt. My mother doesn't do guilt the way most people do guilt, but something adjacent. The discomfort of a person confronting a large error she made. Not the error of being unkind, but the more complicated error of being wrong. My mother's system for never needing to be wrong had just developed a significant structural problem. You should have said something, she said quietly. No one asked, I said. That landed. I watched it land. She took a small sip of wine and looked at the middle distance for a moment. Carla had gone quiet beside me. The thing she'd said at the food table was hanging in the air the way things hang when they've been overturned by facts. She wasn't apologizing. Carla doesn't apologize, but she was doing the silent recalibration of a person who has said something in front of witnesses that turned out to be categorically wrong. My Uncle Frank was back, talking to 2 neighbors, pointing at the car, explaining. Eileen from my mom's school had heard the exchange and was quietly revising a long-held opinion. Danny had a look on his face that was the closest thing to a smile I'd seen from a family member all afternoon. Guests drifted over. The car became a conversation piece. I answered questions. Yes, Mesa, Ford franchise. 2 years for the dealership, 7 years total in the market, 62 employees. I watched people revise their picture of me in real time. Some were gracious. Some were doing more elaborate gymnastics, reconciling the story they'd been carrying with the data they were receiving. My dad stood at the edge of all of it. He didn't come over. He stood about 20 feet back, watching. I met his eyes once and held them for a moment and then looked away. Not submission, just not having anything to say yet. The toast was coming. I could feel the party moving toward it the way parties move toward the structure that's supposed to save them when something unexpected has destabilized the energy. I went back to the yard, found a seat near the edge of the gathering, and waited for my mom to tell everyone about the peaceful family she had built. Carla did the toast. She stood with her champagne glass while my mom sat in the place of honor and played the role of the one being celebrated. It was a smart arrangement. Carla got to be the one doing the honoring while my mom was publicly honored. Carla is good at these performances. She has always had a social fluency I genuinely respect, even when I don't respect what she does with it. She talked about my mom's generosity, about how she'd held the family together, about the house always being open, all technically accurate, the way a lot of technically accurate things are also incomplete pictures. Then she said, "Mom, you've shown us what it means to stay." She looked at me when she said it, not obviously addressing the gathering, technically, but her eyes made a small deliberate movement in my direction, the kind that's designed to be deniable but is completely clear to the person it's aimed at. "You've shown us what it means to stay." And there was I, the one who left. A few people clapped. Danny sat with his glass in his hand and looked at the table. My mom stood for her own brief remarks. She thanked everyone for coming, talked about how family was the most important thing, how 60 asked for honesty and presence. She looked genuinely happy, like a woman in a moment she had prepared for. Then she looked at me. Not a glance, a real look. It lasted 4 seconds. I looked back. I didn't smile. She looked away first. Cake, candles, song. My mom closed her eyes, blew them out. People cheered. I put down my champagne glass and walked toward her. She saw me coming. I watched her decide how to receive it. She stood still and let me come to her. And when I got there, I hugged her. She's smaller than she used to be, or I'm bigger, or both. The hug was brief, not cold. Brief, the way physical contact is between people who have been formal with each other for years and aren't sure what the rules are. "Happy birthday," I said. "Thank you for coming," she said. Someone else was beside her with a gift, and the moment closed. I found Linda on the edge of the patio 20 minutes later. "I'm glad I came," I told her. She studied my face. "Are you?" "Yeah, I think so." She nodded and looked out at the yard. "She's proud of you," Linda said. She heard what Frank said about the dealership. She'll process it in her own way. "I know. The way she processes things is not always great. I know that too." She patted my arm. "You turned out good." My dad found me near the drink table as the party thinned. He saw me coming and waited. "Leaving soon?" he asked. "In a few minutes." He nodded. "Same configuration as the back fence." Not quite looking at each other. "The dealership," he said. "That's something." "Yeah, you did that on your own?" "Mostly. I had a mentor." He turned the glass in his hand. "I didn't know what you were building out there." "You didn't ask," I said. "That's okay. I'm not saying it to accuse you. I'm saying it so we both have the same facts." He looked at his glass. "I didn't say things right when you left." This was the most he had ever said about any of it. 17 words 7 years ago, and now 7 more. I counted. I reached into my jacket and took out a business card. New design, dealership logo, my title. I put it in his hand. "I charge for consultations now," I said. He looked at the card. Something moved across his face in the vicinity of sorrow. "That's fair," he said very quietly. I hugged him. Brief. The kind that says I'm done with this conversation but not done with you. He held on a half-second longer than I expected. Then I walked toward the front of the house. Carla intercepted me in the side yard. She was alone, arms loose at her sides. "So?" she said. "So?" I said. She looked at me. I waited. "It was a joke," she said. "Still broke, still alone." She didn't need to specify. "I know that's what you said it was." She went quiet, running through the options. Defend it, minimize it, redirect to my failures. "You could have called," she said. "Redirect to my failures it was." "You could have too," I said. She didn't have a response. 7 years and nobody had picked up the phone. And the fact that this was primarily a commentary on my choices required a specific commitment to a narrative. "What do you want from me?" she said. "Nothing right now," I said. "I want you to know I'm fine. I want you to know the version of me you've been telling people about is not the current version. And when you're ready to have a real conversation, without an audience, without the bit, I'll be available." She stared at me. "That's it?" she said. "That's it." I walked down the driveway, got in the car, started the engine. 40 people at that party had a new version of me now. I hadn't given a speech. I hadn't made a scene. I hadn't explained myself to anyone who had already decided not to hear it. I had parked a car in the only available spot and let the registration do the talking. I pulled out onto the street and drove toward the highway. I flew home the next morning. The airport was quiet at 6 a.m., the way small regional airports are quiet. Not the hum beneath noise, but actual quiet, punctuated by a departure announcement and the sound of one coffee machine behind the only open counter. I bought a coffee and sat at my gate and thought about the previous afternoon. There is a particular tiredness that comes after emotional labor with no visible output. I hadn't done anything dramatic. I hadn't given a speech or confronted anyone or stormed out. I had been present, said a few true things to a few people, and I was sitting in a quiet airport feeling the specific exhaustion of a person who has been vigilant for several hours and is only now allowing himself to stop. I thought about my mom's face when I told her about the dealership, the thing I couldn't name in her expression. I'd woken at 5 in my hotel room and lain there in the dark thinking about it. I think I finally identified it on the drive to the airport. It wasn't pride. Pride would have been easier. It was the look of a person who has been wrong about something for 7 years and is encountering that wrongness firsthand for the first time. Not the comfortable secondhand kind where someone tells you you've been wrong, but the kind where the evidence is standing in front of you telling you about 62 employees. She hadn't said she was wrong. She's not built that way, but it was there. I don't know what to do with that yet. I think that's okay. I have time to figure out what I want from my family and what my family is capable of giving, and whether those two things can find a version of each other that works. I called Dale from the gate. It was 6:15 Arizona time. He picked up on the third ring, sounding completely awake, which is how Dale always sounds. "How was it?" he said. "Interesting," I said. "That could mean a lot of things." "Yeah? Did you say what you needed to say?" I thought about the card in my dad's hand, the conversation with Carla, the hug. "Most of it," I said. "Most of it it is usually enough. We talked for 20 minutes. He asked about the lot. We got into a conversation about the certified pre-owned certification process, and by the time they called my boarding group, I felt like a person again. 3 weeks after the party, Carla texted me, not an apology. It said, "I've been thinking, I think we should talk sometime." I sat with it for a day, typed 3 different responses, deleted 2, sent, "I think so too. Call me when you're ready." She hasn't called yet. That's okay. Hard calls are hard. You do them when you're ready or you don't, and the people worth talking to understand that. My dad emailed me. He'd found the website from the business card, looked up the dealership. The email had 2 paragraphs. The first said it looked like a real operation, and he was glad. The second was 2 sentences. "I was wrong about some things. I should have said that before now." I sat with it for 4 days. I thought about the voicemail, the Civic, the $60, the air mattress, the $400 after Marcus shook my hand. Then I wrote back. I said I appreciated him saying it. I said things had been hard on my end, and probably hard on his too. And I thought there was a version of us that could talk honestly someday if we were both willing to try. I said I wasn't ready yet, but I wasn't not ready either, and that was a start. He wrote back 3 words. "That's fair enough. My mom hasn't reached out. I don't expect her to. Not soon." My mom processes things privately and completely before she does anything about them. When she does, it will be an invitation to something. A holiday, maybe. That's how she communicates. Through events, through the structure of gatherings. When she does, I'll decide what I want to do. Danny texted me the evening of the party. "I knew you were doing something. You've always had that look." I texted back, "What look?" "Like you're doing math no one else can see." I laughed. Sent him a photo of the lot at night with all the lights on. The way it looks on a clear Arizona evening when the inventory is full and the sign is lit and it's just mine. He sent back a fire emoji and a long string of exclamation points. His kids are in middle school. I told him to bring them out sometime. Let them see the lot. I think he will. Some promises are made without the bright voice. Those are the ones I tend to believe. I've been back at the lot for 2 weeks and things are back to normal, which is to say they're busy, which is to say good. Strong month. Certified pre-owned numbers up. Service department had a record week in the middle of it. Tony, my GM, who has been with me since month 3 and who is the operational spine of the whole operation, stepped into an expanded role we'd been discussing for 6 months. He did it like he'd been doing it for years. I told him that and he said, "I have been. I just wasn't getting paid for it." I gave him the raise. He thanked me and went back to work because Tony is not sentimental, which is one of the reasons he's good. I do the early morning walk around most days. Been doing it since we opened. There's something about being on the lot at 6 a.m. before anyone else arrives. The inventory clean and quiet, the lights just coming on, that resets something in me. Dale taught me the walk around. He said a principal who doesn't know his own inventory is operating on other people's information. I think that applies to more than cars. Some mornings I take the long route past the service bays and the pre-owned lot and out to the Route 9 side where the sign is Devlin Auto. My name. My father's last name? Yes, but mine. I decided against changing it when we opened. The name is mine too. It doesn't belong to him more than it belongs to me. And I wasn't going to let the difficult parts of where I came from take something that was also legitimately mine. I keep the voicemail. I thought about deleting it. Wondered if it would feel like freedom or like losing something useful. The truth is it still serves a function. When I have a hard week, and there are hard weeks in this business when the numbers aren't right or a deal falls apart or someone I trusted makes a choice I didn't see coming, I listen to it. Not to get angry, not to prove something, just as a baseline. This is where you started. This is the minimum you already survived. Everything since is the part that didn't have to happen. I talked to Dale 2 Sundays ago. He'd been hiking and was in an expansive mood. At the end he said, "Tell me how the family thing went. You were quiet about it after." I told him all of it. The party, Carla, my dad's face at the registration, the card in my dad's hand, the conversation in the side yard, the email. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "The thing about your dad," he said, "is he probably knew the whole time." "What do you mean?" "People who say things like that, you don't have what it takes, those people aren't always as sure as they sound. Sometimes the sharpest criticism comes from people who are scared of what you might do if you believe in yourself too much. Like if you make it, something is proven about them that they're not ready to face." I sat with that. "I don't know if that makes it better or worse," I said. "Maybe neither," he said. "Maybe it just makes it human." We talked for another 10 minutes and he went to watch the sunset. I think about what he said almost every day. I don't know if my father knew. I don't know what was underneath the 17 words. I'm not sure it matters in any practical sense. What matters is what I did after them and what I built with them and what it turns out you can construct when someone hands you a reason and you decide to get to work. The air mattress is long gone. The Civic sold to a scrapper in Phoenix in year 2. The $60 became $400, became the commission on a house in Glendale, became a team, became a franchise approval, became 11 acres, and a sign on Route 9. You don't have what it takes. I have 62 employees. I have Dale's number in my phone. I have a name lit up on Route 9 against the Arizona night. I keep the voicemail because I want to remember the exact distance between where I started and where I am. On some mornings, standing on the lot at 6 a.m. with the whole quiet operation waiting to start around me, it still feels like the most useful piece of evidence I've ever been given. Not evidence against him. Evidence for me. 7 years, $60, a window that only went down, and a car parked at the end of a driveway in a town that had already decided who I was. It turned out the registration disagreed.